Secretary of War Henry Stimson held deep reservations about the Tuskegee Airmen, seeing them as a politically motivated experiment that would embarrass both themselves and the Air Force. But they were trained and ready to go.
What are you going to do with them? The War Department felt that the safe thing would be to send them to Liberia, where they could fly patrols in their fighter planes over the ocean and look for Axis submarines. And they'd be completely out of the way, and no one would hear from them again until the war ended.
But the Axis did not cooperate. In North Africa, the Luftwaffe ruthlessly harassed Allied ground and bomber operations, and there were howls for more planes and pilots of any color. In April of 1943, the 99th Flight Pursuit Squadron left for North Africa under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Davis, Jr. The base commander was an avowed segregationist. The blacks weren't invited to join the officers' club. They were kept segregated in a far corner of the airfield with separate tents and a separate mess hall. The Lonely Eagles, as they wryly called themselves, sharpened their combat skills in the only way they could, on the job and bloodily. In June, Lieutenant Charles Hall blasted a German plane out of the sky to become the first black fighter pilot with a confirmed kill in World War II. But acceptance was dead slow. Again, it was sheer necessity that brought the black warriors heavily into the fighting. The brutal stalemate of the Italian campaign revealed a critical need for fighter aircraft to defend the Anzio beachhead, the new long-range bomber bases, and the bombers themselves from the fiercely fighting Luftwaffe. Now thoroughly blooded, the 99th became a scourge of the skies. General Spaatz, once a doubter, quickly authorized the acceptance of additional black fighter squadrons. The 332nd Fighter Group soon included not just the 99th, but the 100th, 301st, and 302nd Squadrons. The white bomber crews had a dramatic change of heart as they realized that when the Lonely Eagles were flying cover, they were behind a shield of hard black steel. Black men were fighting magnificently, but nobody knew about it.
The 332nd in 200 missions, 50 flights per mission, 50 sorties per mission, about 10,000 sorties, never lost a bomber to an enemy fighter. And that's a unique record. No other outfit in the United States Army Air Corps that stayed in the battle as long as they did, that flew that many missions, could make that claim.
The Navy also could no longer do without black fighting men, as the vast Pacific island-hopping campaigns brought huge Allied flotillas up against fanatical Japanese counterattacks by kamikaze suicide raiders and surface fleets. Suddenly, black seamen were back in fighting action in the United States Navy. Ships like the USS Mason were manned predominantly by African Americans and given tough escort duties in the American invasion fleets. One of the young officers, Samuel Gravely, would one day become the first African American admiral. Dory Miller, who had won a Silver Star at Pearl Harbor, died in the sinking of the carrier Liscombe. Some barriers began to fall. Black women came out of the kitchens in force to join the women's branches of the Army, Navy, and Coast Guard. Over 500 became Army nurses. Many became officers. An elite all-black paratroop company, the 555th Triple Nichols, was formed. But, like many combat-ready black units, was kept backwater, far from the fighting. When the great D-Day invasion hit Normandy, black troops were not in the assault waves. They manned the service battalions, unloading ships, running bulldozers, and driving trucks. But when Patton's tanks broke out of the beachhead and started their sprint across France, they progressed only because the 469th Quartermaster Unit, 70% black, created the legendary Red Ball Express, a hell-for-leather night-and-day truck supply line that kept the fuel, food, and ammunition rolling to the front.
They constantly was going all the time. No stopping, always on call, any time of day or night. Sometimes
the trucks outran the armor, and the black drivers had to take up their rifles and fight their way past any Germans they ran into. In Italy, all the way up the long, bleak peninsula from Naples to the River Po, blacks were fighting. On steamy Guadalcanal, the blacks chased an elusive Japanese enemy hidden in the smothering jungle. White officers were assigned so that they would never be junior to black officers. The result was inefficiency and resentment.
I was angry. It made me feel very, very angry. The fact that my intelligence was insulted every time that I would make a suggestion on a tactic or whatever. The black officers were never given any latitude in any command situation at all. Personally, I felt that I was downgraded because I was black.
It was in France that the Black Warriors carved a legend. Their 614th Tank Destroyer Battalion and 761st Tank Battalion piled up medals and unit citations, fighting Germany's best. The odds were always desperate, but worse after the shocking success of the Germans' immense December 1944 offensive into the Ardennes forest in Belgium. The slaughterhouse to be called the Battle of the Bulge. The Allies were hammered backwards, casualties soared. General J.C.H. Lee, nicknamed Courthouse, saw a way to find the extra men to stop the Germans.
Right at hand were these black soldiers who had originally trained as infantry and been reassigned to quartermaster or transportation or other outfits. So the General Courthouse Lee decided that they would be the saviors of the Army. So he proposed that Eisenhower call for black volunteers and join the white units. And Eisenhower's chief of staff, Beadle Smith, thought it was a terrible idea, that it went against the American way of life. Patton opposed it, but Lee prevailed, and Eisenhower went ahead, called for volunteers, but he called for both white and black volunteers.
When we volunteered to go into combat, we automatically had to give up any rank that we had. We had to go in as privates.
I was generous. I give them my stripes. I went from buck sergeant to buck private for a chance to get shot at. But I didn't worry about getting shot because I was young, and I felt that I was going to survive, which I did.
2,500 black volunteers would fight for their lives alongside white soldiers as the outcome in the Bulge swung in the balance.